This video is an Alexa app guide created by Jerry Feliz and Jeff Hill. Hi, this is Jerry here with Jeff Hill, who is going to be going over the Alexa app. Hi, Jeff.
Hi. So what I've got here on running on an iOS, my app on my iPhone, is the home screen, and you know it's the home screen first of all because it shows you all the things you've been doing, like for example the question of the day and so on, meditation, kind of interesting, and you can also tell in the lower left corner is the home icon, which looks like a little thing with a bunch of lines under it. To the right of that are a bunch of other menu items, and I'm going to go through basically all of them. Some of them may be useful, more useful than others. The icon immediately to the right of the home screen is the communications icon, and this one is useful because this is where you would set up. First of all, you can share photos with other people. You can use the drop-in feature, which we talked about earlier. That's the ability, for example, once you have the permission of another user and on their device, you can basically drop in on their device and if you have a video device, it'll be a video call. If it's an audio device, you'll have an audio call. To the right of that is announcements, which is kind of cool. It allows you to basically make an announcement over any of the devices in your network. For example, hey, dinner is ready, and that'll go out as an announcement, or you can pick a specific device. Way in the upper right corner, you'll see a little picture of a person or a little representation of a person. I'm not going to click on it now, but what you would do, this is where you would either add or delete contacts. So if you didn't use the app to set up, or didn't use your app to set up the phone, this is where you could come in and edit or change it. You can always add contacts. Alexa very accommodating with that particular feature. Okay, so upper in the right corner is this little representation of a person, which is really where the contacts are. And this is where you can come in and basically search for contacts. There you see me, Jeffrey Hill, and then you can add a new contact, or you can go through the ones. Many of these would come in from, and actually what's interesting is first it does show you the devices first. So for example, the bedroom spot is actually a device it shows all of the devices first. And if you keep going, you're going to see other people in my network, which came in when I set up the original, when I set up my devices using the iPhone app. So when you set up a new device, or let's say it's your first device, what happens is that when you use the app to set up the device, it will bring in by default all of the contacts that it finds on your iOS device or your Android device. And so that'll be populated. If you don't use a phone to set it up, you can still add contacts either through Alexa itself by saying add contact, or you can come in here and do it. And you can also delete them. Now we're back to the icons again at the bottom of the screen. The one to the right of that is essentially a media player. I'm reading a book called Winston's War, and that's an Audible book. You'll see it's up in the left corner. So if I wanted to listen to it right now on my phone, I could do that. Similarly,
Can you demo that?
I can give it a shot.
Of Arcadia. De Gaulle said after Pearl Harbor, over. Of course, there are more operations, battles.
The one thing that's important is the play controls and the speaker controls are down at the bottom. There's a little forward arrow, and then there's also a little speaker icon. So you can turn the sound on or off. If we were using a pair of Bluetooth speakers or a headset, of course, it would then go to the headset. The other thing is that you'll notice at the start there, we picked a device. So I have a number of devices, and any one of them, or in fact, all of them, I could broadcast it over the entire array of my 8 devices around the house, which would drive my wife crazy. But the point is, if you wanted to put music in every room, you could actually do it this way by picking all devices. Now, let me go back to, okay, so we're done with this. Let's go to the next tab, which is the device tab. That's the one to the right of the media device. So there's the device tab. This is a little interesting because it's an interesting view of devices. It's going to first of all show us if we have any light bulbs or if we have alarms or other devices that are that Alexa knows about and can actually use. And as a matter of fact, in my system, I use it for home automation. And so there, in fact, are light bulbs. And they're arranged, interestingly enough, by room, which is actually how I have it set up. So if we go down a little further down here, you'll see the groups are, for example, the basement, which is where we are now. And it'll list the devices there. If I keep going, it'll go to the family room. So it treats them as a group. And you can turn them on and off as a group as well. And of course, you can do that by voice command. The other thing that I wanted to point out was this is where you can turn on this. There's this new feature called Alexa Guard, which is in fact a thing that listens for noises that it doesn't recognize at certain hours of the day or night, and will then in fact like for example, if I turn this on, I can't want to demonstrate it now, but if someone came into my house at 2 a.m. or dropped a glass or broke a window, the Alexa is going to wake up and warn me. It listens for unfamiliar sounds and will then give me an alarm on whatever device I choose. So it's a nice little way to have a sort of inexpensive alarm system, if you will. So let's move from this now. So this is one way to look at devices, and you'll see up on the right corner that little plus sign. In fact, you could add a device here. My feeling is that the real place where you want to do that is in the next menu, which I'm going to show you. So we're going to go to the right one more, and you'll see there's 3 little lines on the lower right corner. And of course, I have to actually press it. This to me is the gold part of the app. And when it was first built, this is whatever it looked like for everything. This is where you would add a device. And I'm going to try that and see what happens, even though I don't have a device to add, but I'll show you what happens. And it's going to ask you which device it is. You would then set up which device you want. And it's at that point that it would ask you for, and it gives you actually some of the devices down there that you could pick. And then it'll pick basically the setup procedure that's the easiest for the device that you're setting up, whether it's an Echo Show, an Echo Dot, and so on. It's all, and the Echo tablets all would come from here. And you pick the right one, and then from there, really all you do is start it, and then enter the network name and the network password, and then and then it's off and running. And that's really all the setup is involved. Further down, we have lists and notes. And this is where you would, for example, see things like my grocery list or what else have I got here? Shopping list. And they're basically the same. They all have butter on them. And then you can just basically add any list. You can create a new list here. And lists are pretty handy. If you, for example, go to the store and you want to hear your list with your app, you can do that because this app's remote will still talk to your devices inside your network and be able to give you contact them, and you can turn on lights on. There's all these activities you can do that are involved using the app away from the network itself. Okay, so one thing I probably didn't make clear is that there are some advantages to using this app, and in fact, it's required for certain tasks. In addition to adding a device, if you're adding a device with no screen, then you have to use the Alexa app. If you have a device with a screen, such as the Echo Show, it does have a small keyboard, but believe me, it's small. And so if you have low vision, it's going to be fairly difficult to use to do any kind of adding of skills or so on. So really this app becomes sort of essential if you want to, in order to manage the Echo network or the Echo devices on your network. We took a look at lists and notes. Down here is something called reminders. And again, this is a good way to just add a reminder. By the way, most of these can actually be done by voice. But if you and I'll tell you the ones that can't be done by voice. So you can create a new list, add something to a list, you can have Alexa read a list. Same with reminders. If you want to set a reminder to call Uncle Bill about that money he owes you, you can do that. And you'll get prompted to add the information and when you want the reminder. Same thing with alarms and timers. I use timers all the time. And for example, I'm going to just do this. I've renamed my device so we don't have to listen to it complaining every time I say the word Alexa. So I'm going to say, computer, set 10-minute timer. Except it didn't pay any attention to me. Computer, set 10-minute timer.
10 minutes, starting now.
Okay. However, if I'm doing an alarm that I'm going to use every day, for example, I have a once called weekly alarm. I tend to set this in here. And if you look, you'll see there's a 7:00 a.m. alarm that comes off every week. It's every weekday. And you can do the same thing for weekends. I don't know why I do it this way. You could do exactly the same thing by voice, but for some reason I'm in the habit of doing it through the app. Another thing would be, going a little further down, there's something called routines. Routines are repetitive tasks that you can set up. And actually the other day, Alexa suggested one to me, which is kind of interesting, which is called the I'm home routine. And what it does is it basically gives me, I'll just say the word Alexa, I'm home, and it'll give me the news briefing, the current news briefing, and then play meditation music for a few minutes, which is kind of nice. If you've just come off my difficult commute from the basement up to the 3rd floor. The next area is skills and games. And this is really the area where you would add skills. For example, if you wanted to add let's just say the tune in radio skill, this is where you would do it. I'm going to open it up and see if this works. Oh, look at that. That does work. What I did was create an accessibility shortcut to change invert the colors. So that's why we can see that. And you can either look at the skills that are already here, or it actually proposes some skills. I find it more useful to just basically use the search button. I'm not going to go through that because it's a very hard little button to run. But up in the right corner, you'll see there's a little, it says F to the right, the left of the word N for English. There's a little search button. You press that and then enter in a category. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to, there's a lot of skills. There's probably about 3 or 4 million at this point. So you have to be a little patient trying to find the exact skill you want. Or what you can do is you can basically do this discover button, and it'll propose some skills based on the things that you do. So basically, this is where you would go to do the find your skills. I find it more easier because there are so many skills now. The easiest thing is to use the search function up at the upper right corner, right next to the word N, which is for English. And you press that and then enter a search key. You can always also do this idea of discover. If you look just below the little left arrow, there's the word discover. If you press that, it'll propose some skills based on your habits that it's discerned. So this is really where you would add the capabilities that are not built in. So for example, if you wanted to go to NFL Newsline, this is where you would find NFL Newsline and put your account in through this part of the app. So for example, if you wanted to add the NFB Newsline, then what you'd have to do is come into the skills, find that skill, add your account, and link your account information into Alexa, and then that would work after that. So that this is a very useful area of the application. Last area down here is we did skills. There's see more, which I don't think there's anything interesting, but we'll look. See less. Well, that's okay. That's That was useful. Blueprints. Blueprints are another type of skill that you can write your own. So if Uncle Ned is coming over, and you want Alexa to say, "Hey, welcome here, welcome to my house, Uncle Ned," you would actually, there's a blueprint to create that kind of a little template in here that you could use to create that kind of a skill. Now, there's a thing called Things to Try. This is sort of their suggestion of new things to do. Settings. This is where you would add, first of all, your account settings, but also the device settings. So, for example, let's go into the device settings for a second. This is a much larger version of the screen we saw under devices. And this shows every device that I own on the network. This is where you can add and delete them. You can change their name here, for example. You can change the wake word here, although you can also do that by telling Alexa, change the wake word. But you'll see, this is my Office. The Office show is the one that's to my right. And if we went in there, we'd see some of the characteristics of that particular. And notice it says it's online. So if you have a question of whether a device is on or not, this is where you would look.
So, Jeff, what do you mean by network?
If you have more than one device, they're going to be running on the Wi-Fi network. And so they will show up here as separate items that you can come in and change their names or do other things with them. You can also take them off the network if you wish. This is where you can add devices and also control them, change their characteristics. So it's a good menu. I find this easier to use than the other device menu, but as with a lot of applications, there's more than one place to do this, basically. My profile is there. We said my account. My device settings. There are accessibility settings, and this I think has to do. I'm going to look right now. Let's just see here quickly. So you apply all these settings to all the devices supported, which would include, I believe. Let's just make sure. Real time. Okay, this is for real time text messaging. Not something I've used, but I've tried. I actually had turned it on, as I recall. So in fact, if I get a text message on a device that doesn't have a screen, Alexa will in fact read it to me. And I might probably have noticed in the earlier article that we talked about, or earlier in the discussion, I talked about the ability to send and receive text messages, and you have to enable this under accessibility, and after that time, you will be able to do that. It has a screen reader, so we demonstrated that earlier. It will read things like NFB, Newsline, and other networks, other various services that are available, and many of them don't require anything but having an account. So finally, there's some location information here. What I found is that sometimes it does use, of course, GPS. This is your privacy settings. So if you don't want Alexa doing anything unless you specifically ask it, it will stop. It will stop listening. And let's see where else is voice responses. This is, you can change the voice. You can actually change you can use a British voice or a female voice, or there's a number of different voices. I guess you can get James Earl Jones as your voice if you want to. If you want to spend the money, I guess probably $1.50 to get it. And then the rest of these are just settings for all the other things that we saw already. Saw already on other parts of the app, music and podcasts. This is where you can set up a lot of those accounts, TVs. News. I happen to like the NPR news, but if you like the Guardian instead, you can set it up here. So this is basically, and I guess what I was trying to allude to earlier is that it's important to know what's in this app, in the app, because if you're going to do anything beyond simple things, you're going to need the application to do it.
Contact Jerry Feliz, who is an assistive technology instructor, at 875-443-6636. Email felizassistivetechnology@gmail.com.